Hello students, so welcome to another class on the topic the Memoirs of a Chota Sahib. Okay, yesterday in our last class, students, we started the topic Memoirs of a Chota Sahib. So by now all of you know that who this Chota Sahib is. This Chota Sahib is none other than our author John Rowantree. Okay, so John Rowantree was the last British senior conservator of the forests of Assam. He was a person from England. He had come to India during the colonial rule of the British, and while he stayed in our country, he ordained a high post, okay, in the government of India. So the high post that he ordained, the last post that he ordained, was the senior conservator of the forests of Assam. So he had to come to our own state, our dear state Assam. অসমলৈ আহিছিলে, অসমত থাকিছিলে। সো অসমত থকা সময়খিনিত তেওঁ যিখিনি অভিজ্ঞতা হৈছিলে, okay, his experiences that he relates in this particular chapter. This chapter actually is an excerpt. এটো লোৱা হৈছে এটা ডাঙৰ এখন কিতাপৰ পৰা। এখন হৈছে A Chota Sahib Memoirs of a Forest Officer. Okay, so it is his experiences. Again, I am telling you all, in my last class also I told you students, here he writes about his experiences during his stay in our own state Assam. Okay, so in our last class we got to know where did they make their first home. Their first home was made on the bank of the river Brahmaputra, and it was a government bungalow. The bungalow was renovated by the public works department. Then we got a description of that bungalow. You have to remember everything point by point. Then we got to know about the superstitious belief prevalent at the time regarding the channel dividing the mainland and the Peacock Island. And after that, in the next paragraph, we got to know about the importance of Guwahati at the time, which is still relevant at this time also. Then we got to know about the visitors which used to come to the author's bungalow, because Guwahati was the port of entry between Shillong and Kolkata. Okay, then we got to know about the unique visitor that had come, that is the tiger. After that, the author comes to the description of the North Bank. In the chapter, students, you will mostly get to know about the two banks of the Brahmaputra, where the author had served as a forest officer, okay, of our state Assam. North Bankotu teo সময় কটাইছিলে, South Bankotu সময় কটাইছিলে. So teo North Bankor অভিজ্ঞতাৰখিনি কথাও লিখিছে, লগতে teo South Bankor অভিজ্ঞতাৰ কথাও লিখি আছে, okay, আৰু বেছিকে, okay, বেছিভাগ teo North Bankor কথাই বেছিকে লিখিছে. He mostly writes about his experiences during his stay in the North Bank. So North Bank, as he has told, is a vast remote stretch of flat ageless land, and it is situated between the foothills of the Himalayas and the sandbanks of the river Brahmaputra. Okay, and he states that it was really a strange place in the sense that the rivers there used to dry up suddenly. They used to go for camp kori thake, potokke dekhise noikhona pani hukai gol, then kiman okhubidhar sammukhin hoy, and ultimately they had to dig the land for water, and the water that they used to get was very dirty. They had to clean the water. Again, then he talks about the different creatures that he used to see there, the mashirs in the river, then the wildfowl, peafowl. He talks about the Manas sanctuary, where these creatures are found in large number. Rhinos dekhisile Manas sanctuary North Bankot asile. Now let us continue, okay? And he also doesn't forget to mention about the governor's Christmas camps, which were most of the time, the Christmas camps were built on the banks of the rivers in the North Bank, because it was a favorite site of the governor. And Rowantree he daitto to paisile. Rowantree used to impart his duties very sincerely, and for that he used to get letters of appreciation. Okay, hebur kothai teo mane obhikota bilakor kotha yat goi ase. Next paragraph to le aha, all of you please read the lines as I tell you, line by line follow kori joa. This was the home of the Assam cheetal. Cheetal is, students, not the fish that we eat. Ami je ko sitol mas, hetu nohoy. Cheetal is a kind of deer, axis deer, spotted. Okay, this was the home of Assam cheetal. This means the North Bank. North Bank khot bahut deer পোৱা গৈছিলে আৰু এই deer বিলাকক কয় Assam cheetal. And it was here that I once witnessed the delightful sight of a she-sloth bear carrying her cuddlesome cub on her back. Here, staying in North Bank, the author had a very memorable experience. It was a sweet, very loving, you may say very delightful, খুব ভাল লগা এটা মানে author অভিজ্ঞতা এটা হৈছিলে. And what was it? He had seen, okay, he had witnessed, one day he had witnessed a she-sloth bear. Sloth bear, you know, students, a kind of bear with hairs on the body and a long muzzle. A তেনেকুৱা এটা sloth bear নিজৰ baby-টো. The baby sloth bear is called the cub. She was carrying her baby on her back. কিমান মৰম চেনেহ অকল মানুহৰে যে নিজৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীৰ প্ৰতি মৰম চেনেহ এইটো নহয়, জীৱ জন্তুৱেও নিজৰ ল'ৰা ছোৱালীক খুব মৰম কৰে. Okay, lot of love is to be seen. They also have feelings, emotions, they also understand. So the author had the opportunity, you may say he was lucky enough to see the delightful sight. এদিন author দেখিছে এটা বেয়াৰে নিজৰ বেবিটোক পিঠিত উঠাই লৈ গৈছে, যেনেকৈ মানুহে বুকুচাত নিজৰ সৰু ল'ৰা ছোৱালীবোৰ উঠাই, ঠিক তেনেকৈ like that itself the sloth bear was carrying her cub on her back. Okay, cuddle some small loving cub on her back right in the middle of the wilds. Hetu eta incident aru eta abhigota author hoisle, another memorable incident he had while he stayed in the North Bank. What was it? Right in the middle of the wilds, a European and his wife had leased a piece of land from the forest department with a view to growing simul trees for the nearby match factory. Tate, okay, North Bank thakute author monot pore a European and his wife, a couple, they had taken a piece of land on lease. From whom? From the forest department. When you take a land on lease, it means you are taking a land on rent for a long period of time. There is some agreement is made. You may take the land on lease for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, for a long period of time. Tumi kini nulua, ekebare mati khini kini lua nohoy, but you are taking it on rent for a long period of time, and you have to do some agreement for that. So teuluke kiyo loisile? They had taken the land from the forest department in order to grow simul trees. Simul trees in Assamese, you all know, himolu gos. Rubor babe teuluke he matikhini loisile forest department. Kune loisile? A European and his wife. For what? For the nearby match factory. Usorte eta জুইখলাৰ মানে ফেক্টৰী এটা হৈছিলে, সেই ফেক্টৰীটোত কাঠ ছাপ্লাই কৰিবৰ বাবে simul tree wood is very good for the match factory, okay, for making matches. So they had taken that piece of land on lease to provide wood for the nearby match factory. They had rigged up miles of electric fencing in an attempt to keep out the deer, but with little success. As far as the deer were concerned, they just jumped over it. So what did they do? They wanted to keep the area protected from the deer. Is a koisel olopagote that it was in North Bank there were lot of cheetal to be found. Okay, lot of deer to be found. So this deer often used to come to the places where people used to grow plants or crops, and they used to destroy it. Hekane deer pra bosai rakhibo karone teuluke ki korile, they rigged up miles of electric fencing. Utte sarifale electric fencing logai dile to keep out the deer, but they didn't get much success as far as the deer were concerned. Why? They just jumped over it. The deer were so clever that they used to jump over the fencing. ধৰি লওক ফেন্সিংখন ইয়াত আছে, তেওঁলোকে এনেকুৱা এটা চিষ্টেম কৰিছিলে যে ফেন্সিংখন টাচ কৰিলে electric current mari dibo, okay, electric shock mari dibo. So the deer were so clever, when they used to go into the plantation, they used to jump over the fencing. So the jump kori die touch no hoy, shock tu na lage, they didn't get the electric shock. So all their efforts went in vain. Iman kosto kora teulukor ekwe lav nohol. Deer bo dhuniya ke jap mari pelai bhitorot humai jaige. Okay. On the other hand, never having met an electric fence before, I received the full treatment. Kintu kar electric shock lagile, jar lagibo lagise tar na lagile, amar author lagile. Author ketia enekwa electric fencing experience kora nai, he had never met such an electric fencing before, so he went and touched the fencing and he got the shock, okay, the electric shock. He had to feel it. He was victimized. Okay, ultimately the author was victimized. So he got the full treatment. I'm afraid the enterprise was in no sense a very profitable one. The author is telling with regret that তেওঁলোকৰ মানে যিটো enterprise means their business was not very profitable. তেওঁলোকৰ বৰ বিশেষ লাভ নহল বিজনেছটো কৰি পেলাই। কি বিজনেছ আছিলে? To plant simul trees and to provide the wood for the nearby match factory. Okay, so in this paragraph we got to know about the Assam Cheetal and beautiful experience of the author regarding the cuddlesome sloth bear, she sloth bear and her cuddlesome cub. And another experience was regarding the European and his wife. Clear, students? So let us move to the next paragraph. During the cold weather, the north bank was delightful. In the rainy season, it was a hotbed of malaria and was best avoided. During the rainy season, মানে যেতিয়া বৰষুণৰ বতৰ হয় বাৰিষাৰ সময়ত বিশেষকৈ North Bank was a hotbed of malaria. North Bank was a place which was very prone to malaria. If people went to North Bank, they often used to be suffering from the disease malaria. But during the cold weather, North Bank was very delightful. Cold weather means during the winter season, the North Bank was very delightful. It was a nice place to visit. Travel at this time of year could also pose problems. Which time? During the rainy season. Rainy seasonot চোৱা সেইকাৰণে অথৰে আগতে কৈছে আমি আগতে চেপ্টাৰটোৰ প্ৰায় ৰিডিং পাৰ্টটোত পাইছোঁ যে সেই অথৰে ইমান বছৰ আগতে বিফৰ ইণ্ডিয়াছ ইণ্ডিপেণ্ডেন্স হোৱাট হি ৰোট এবাউট আৱাৰ ষ্টেট আছাম ইট ইজ ষ্টিল ৰেলেভেণ্ট ইন দ্য প্ৰেজেণ্ট টাইমছ আমি এতিয়াও জানো যে বাৰিষা কালত অসমৰ কিছুমান ঠাইলৈ যোৱাটো বহুত দিগদাৰী হৈ যায় হোৱাই বিকজ অফ দ্য annual flood problem. So in North Bank, this was a very common problem. During the rainy season, malaria was a very common disease at the time. Travel was also complicated. It also could pose problems. The rivers were in flood, and the bamboo bridges erected at the start of the cold weather were soon washed away. The rivers got flooded. Gute barikha banpani hoi jay, noibur gute banpani. Aru jibur bamboo bridge tarpor asile. He bamboo bridge bilak washed away. They used to be washed away by the flood. So students, we have to go back to the past. Ei chapter to bhalke buji pabole hole ami past hole ghuri jabo lagibo. He samoyot iman এডভান্স নাছিলে এতিয়া আমাৰ ব্ৰহ্মপুত্ৰৰ ওপৰত যিখন আমাৰ এতিয়া বগীবিল ব্ৰিজ হ'ল কিমান বছৰৰ মূৰত হৈছে চোৱা ইন দিছ চেঞ্চুৰী উই আৰ গেটিং দিছ জাষ্ট ইমেজিন ইমান মাইটি ৰিভাৰ ব্ৰহ্মপুত্ৰৰ ওপৰতে ভাল ব্ৰিজ নাছিলে অ'কে তেতিয়া সৰু সৰু ৰিভাৰবিলাকৰ ওপৰতো আৰু এই গুৰুত্ব দিয়া নহৈছিলে চ' দ্য ব্ৰিজেছ অন দিছ ৰিভাৰ্ছ মষ্টলি ৱেৰ বিল্ট অফ বেম্বু but we have to admit one thing that the bamboo bridges are really very elastic. Big cars can also pass on them, isn't it? They don't break generally. So the author here is telling that those bamboo bridges were often erected. They often made during the winter season. But during the rainy season when there were flood, what happened? These bridges were washed away. যেতিয়া তুমি ভাবাচোন দলংবোৰ যেতিয়া লৈ যায় বাৰিষাত এই যেতিয়া বানপানীয়ে দলংবোৰ উটুৱাই লৈ যায় তেতিয়াহ'লে কি হ'ব ইপাৰ সিপাৰ মাজত লিংকটো নাইকিয়া হৈ যায় নৈখনৰ এই পাৰে আৰু সেই পাৰে ইউ ডোণ্ট গেট এনি লিংক অ'কে দ্য কমিউনিকেশ্যন ইজ ব্ৰকেন ইট ইজ চিভিয়াৰ চ' ইট ৱাজ আ গ্ৰেট প্ৰব্লেম এট দ্য টাইম These bridges swayed and creaked alarmingly under a passing car, but were immensely strong and extremely useful. The author is telling that these bridges, these bamboo bridges, they swayed. Swayed means to move back and forth. Ekdom lor sor kori jay, okay? Jeta gari ekhon par hoy poredi. And creaked, they made a creaking sound. Jeta ekhon gari par hoy, kerkerai jayge. Bridge bilak met eta shobdo kore, he bahor dolong bilake. Kintu, but the author is admitting they were strong and very useful, extremely strong and they were very useful. Okay, so asun etia moi tumalko ekhinte eta kotha ko he was from which country? He was from England, and we all know that there the places are very advanced. He follow western world kon amar world ke bahut besi advanced. So he jon manhue that person John Rowantree probably he had never seen such bridges before. অসমলৈ আহি তেওঁ কি কি যে অভিজ্ঞতা হোৱা নাই, অসমলৈ আহি তেওঁ আচৰিত খাইছে যে এনেকুৱা বাঁহৰ দলঙতো মানুহে অহা যোৱা কৰে, এনেকুৱা ফ্লাডৰ প্ৰব্লেম হয়, ক'ত সোমালোহি, তেওঁ চাগে ভাবিছে কেনেকৈ ইয়াত মানুহবিলাক থাকে। প্ৰবেবলি হি ৱাজ ছাৰপ্ৰাইজড বিকজ হি হেড কাম ফ্ৰম এন এডভান্সড প্লেচ, ইজন্ট ইট? দে আৰ ইভেন নাও দে আৰ মাছ এডভান্স দেন আছ। চ' সেই সময়তো আমাৰ অসমখন আৰু বেকৱাৰ্ড আছিলে, এতিয়াতো বহুতখিনি উন্নতি হ'লেই। চ' সেই সময়ত তেওঁলোকে এটা কম্পেৰিজন কৰে নহয়। জন ৰাণ্টে অবভিয়াছলি দেৰ ইউজ টু বি এ কম্পেৰিজন ইন হিজ মাইণ্ড বিটুইন হিজ প্লেচ এণ্ড দ্য প্লেচ ৱেৰ হি ৱাজ, স্পেচিয়েলি ইন আছাম। চ' ৱেন হি চ দিজ থিংছ হি ৱাজ ৰিয়েলি ছাৰপ্ৰাইজ, বাট হি ইজ এডমিটিং দ্য গুড থিংছ। ভাল কথাখিনি তেওঁ একচেপ্ট কৰিছে যে এনেকুৱা দলংবিলাক সঁচাই খুব কামৰ, কিন্তু এই দলংবোৰ সাজিবৰ কাৰণে ক'ত শিকিলে, আমাৰ অসমৰ মানুহে ক'ত শিকিলে? দে ডিডন্ট গেট এনি ট্ৰেইনিং ফৰ ডেট, দে ডিডন্ট ডু এনি কোৰ্চ ফৰ ডেট, ইজন্ট ইট? চ' দিজ আৰ ভেৰি ইন'ভেটিভ থিংছ। কিন্তু নিজে আমাৰ গাঁৱৰ মানুহবিলাকক তোমালোকে দেখিবা জেওৰাখন নিজে দি লয়, বা ধৰি লোৱা ঘৰটো বাঁহৰ ঘৰ এটা ধুনীয়াকৈ নিজে সাজি লয়। চ' দিজ থিংছ আৰ ৰিয়েলি প্ৰেজ ৱাৰ্ডি এণ্ড দ্য অথৰ ইজ প্ৰেজিং, হি ইজ এপ্ৰিচিয়েটিং দ্য বেম্বু ব্ৰিজেছ অলদো দে ৱৰ washed away by the flood. Flood is a natural problem, natural disaster, you may say. We don't have any control over it, but he is appreciating the bamboo bridges. Once I forded one of these flooded rivers on horseback. One very unique experience he's talking about. It took into exam at a students his experience of crossing a flooded river. Noikhonot gote banpani, কেনেকৈ নৈখন পাৰ হ'ব, দলং নাই, নৈখন পাৰ হ'বলৈ কোনো ধৰণৰ দলং নাই, অথৰে এতিয়া নৈখন পাৰ হয় কেনেকৈ, হাউ ইজ হি গোয়িং টু ক্ৰছ দ্য ৰিভাৰ, অ'কে? চ' হি হেড টু ফেচ আ লট অফ প্ৰব্লেম। ইটছ ভেৰি হিউমাৰাছ অলছ'। এইটো মনত থবা তোমালোকে, এইটো আহে তোমালোকৰ কুৱেশ্যন 2 4 মাৰ্কছৰ কাৰণে আহিব পাৰে, কেতিয়াবা 5 মাৰ্কছৰ কাৰণেও আহি যাব পাৰে। ওৱান্স আই ফৰ্ডেড ওৱান অফ দিজ ফ্লাডেড ৰিভাৰ্ছ অন হৰ্চ বেক। ঘোঁৰাৰ পিঠিত উঠি পেলাই অথৰে তেনেকুৱা এখন নৈ ক্ৰছ কৰিলে, অ'কে? হি ক্ৰছড a flooded river on horseback. With difficulty, I persuaded my mount to plunge into the water. Mount means, what do you know? By mount means a light weighted horse which is used for riding. মানে বেছি ওজন থকা নহয়, লাইট ৱেইটেড হৰ্চ, যিটো মানে ৰাইডিঙৰ পাৰ্পাছত ইউজ কৰা হয়। চ' অথৰ গট অন দ্য হৰ্চ, দেন হি পাৰ্চুৱেডেড, খুব জোৰ দিছে ঘোঁৰাটোত পানীত নামিবলৈ, নেনামে, ঘোঁৰাটো পানীত নেনামে, দ্য হৰ্চ ডাজন্ট গেট ইন টু দ্য ৱাটাৰ। আল্টিমেটলি ইট plunged into the water, it jumped into the water, then slipped over his croup. Croup means the back part of the horse. Back part of any animal is called the croup, okay? So what happened? The otter slipped. অথৰে মানে ঘোঁৰাটোৰ সৈতে যেতিয়া নৈখনত জাম্প কৰিলে, ঘোঁৰাটোৱে জাম্প কৰিলে, অথৰ পিঠিত উঠি আছে, নৈত সোমোৱাৰ লগে লগে কি হ'ল, অথৰ মানে চিটৰ পৰা চুচৰি আহিলে, okay? He slipped from the back of the horse, and then he was and hung on to his tail, which I was able to use as a rudder. Ar goi kunu mote othore ghuratu nes dalot dhori ase, okay? He hung onto the tail of the horse. Just imagine the situations of flooded river. The otter was holding to the tail of the horse. If he leaves the tail, then what will happen? He will fall into the flooded river. Then he has to face a lot of difficulty. So what he did, he used the tail of the horse as a rudder. It was a blessing for him. When I pushed it to the right, the horse veered to the left. Veered means it went to the left, turned sharply to the left. Right sided jetia nesdal tane ghuratu left side e jay, ko left side nesdal tanile ghuratu right side e jay. It was working like that. Othore etu mane observe korile. More usually vice versa, veered to the left and vice versa, and we eventually made a safe landing on the other side of the river, and ultimately they were able to make a safe landing on the other side of the river. Dhuniyake goi noikhon cross kori itu par palage, okay? So that was a unique experience of the otter, crossing the river, flooded river on a horseback, that too holding on to the tail of the horse, okay? More usually, crossings were made in a mar boat. All of you please underline, students, mar boat. Now, those of you are listening to my lecture, or those of you are studying this chapter, reading the chapter, and are from North Bank, probably from Dhemaji or Lakhimpur, you must have had the experience of getting on a mar boat. I also had this experience long back. I went on the marboat. I had the experience of getting on a marboat when I went to a place in North Bank, Dhokwakhana. Okay, when I was working in the All India Radio, then luckily I got the chance to go to Dhokwakhana. It was really a wonderful trip. আৰু তেতিয়াই মই মাৰবোটত উঠাৰ মোৰ অভিজ্ঞতাটো হৈছিলে যদি নোযোৱা হ'লে হয়তো এতিয়া নহ'লেহেঁতেন because nowadays most of the rivers have bridges on them, isn't it? So what happens? See, more usually crossings were made in marboat. A tedious performance at the best of the time. Author is appreciating. So author bhalkhini kintu koise. The author is telling marboat is really something very appreciable. A performance at the best of times. Ekdom bhal homoyte marboat khini khub bhalke use hoy. The mar, which was a ferry. All of you please underline that. What is a mar? If you are asked that question, you please underline mar was a ferry. Okay, mar was a ferry consisting of a plank platform covering two open boats placed alongside one another. Itia তোমালোকক লগ পোৱা হলে মই বোৰ্ডত আঁকি দিব পাৰিলোহেঁতেন চোৱা মাৰটো হৈছে কি হৈছে মাৰবোট ইজ আ ফেৰী see two boats are placed side by side দুখন নাও এনেকে জয়েন কৰি দিয়ে জয়েন কৰিলে কি হয় নাওখন জয়েন দুখন কৰি দিলে তাৰ পিছত কি হ'ব you get a lot of space আৰু space পাবৰ কাৰণে তাৰ ওপৰত কাঠৰ এখন প্লেটফৰ্ম দি দিয়ে plank means wooden platform is placed on top of the two boats after they are joined দুখন নাও ওচৰলৈ আনি জয়েন কৰি দিয়ে আৰু তাৰ ওপৰত কাঠ ডাঙৰকে দি দিয়ে কাঠৰ প্লেটফৰ্ম এখন কি plank platform. These were covering two open boats placed alongside one another. These were either paddled across the river or connected by running cable to another stretched across the river. This whole part, please students, you underline. The side of likhit hopra marboat and its working. How did the marboat work? So they placed the two boats alongside, side by side, on top of the wooden plank platform was placed on top of that. And how did the marboats work? Keneke ipar pa hipale jai marboats bilak. They were either paddled, okay? They were either paddled across the river, paddle kori loi jai. Nohole they were connected to a running cable. They were connected to a cable means a strong rope. They were connected to a strong rope to another stretched across the river. Eta river hitu side thake rope dal, eta etu side thake, and they were connected and they just went like this from one side to the other side, okay, and were propelled from one side to the other by the force of the current or noir mane jitu panir jitu current thake the current forced these marboats to cross the river. Okay, this is how the marboats used to work. So see how they used to utilize the space kiman khini space pai jai marboat or upor manhue okol manhue nohoy bikes small cars animals moi ebur sob uthai nia dekhisu marboat bilakot. This ingenious device, ingenious means clever, author is telling quite clever device, worked very well, khub bhal kam korisile, but constant adjustments had to be made to allow for the rise and fall of the river. But some adjustments had to be made. Sometimes there was more water in the river, sometimes no water was there. Hey je pani barhe kome hetu logot adjust kori thakibo logia hoy. A whole series of ghats means landing places, or landing places had to be constructed at different levels on the river bank. So these were some loopholes or you may say demerits related to it. Jiblak okhubidha jiblak asile mane marbotor logot kam kori ebilak horu okhubidha, but they can be easily digested. What was one problem? Ghats had to be created. The ghats mean landing places at different levels of the river bank. Fortunately, traffic was light. The author is saying luckily at that time traffic was light, manhu besi nasile, and although crossing took time, there were few delays. Crossing korte olop time lagisile, but iman delay u nohoisile, iman deri u nohoisile, okay. So the author is full of praise. See students, those people who thought about this idea, ingenious means just clever idea, they didn't get any training. Moi tumalko tahati kono engineering college ot engineering kori oha nai enekwa marboat banabo karone ebor manhor nijor monor pra ulua idea. It said no, necessity is the mother of invention. Jetia manhoe dekhe je barikha kalot jetia flood hoy, when the bridges are washed away, they have to cross the river. How will they cross the river? Ekhon horu nawon to bare bare kiman bar cross kori thakibo. So these ideas come to the minds of the people. So we have to admit, we have to say with pride that the people of our state are really clever. Okay, they are really skilled. How they made this device, this particular device of the marboats, where the person coming from a foreign country, an outsider, he is also full of praise for these marboats. The other difficulty about travel anywhere in Assam during the rains was the fact that the dirt tracks soon became unusable by normal cars. Eta to said it was because of the flood. Travel was very difficult during the rainy season in North Bank. Second, the author is telling that travel anywhere in Assam during the rain was the fact that the dirt tracks soon became unusable by normal cars. See, generally the dirt tracks, jibu dhuli thoka rasta bilak, hebilak borokhon dia loge loge kenekwa hoi jay. These got converted into muddy roads, and normal cars cannot ply on these muddy roads. It becomes very difficult, and the jeep had yet to be invented. Ar tetialke jeep invent hua nasile. Jeep jikunu jagale gusi jay. You can take the jeeps to any place, okay? But at that time the jeep was not invented. So that was another difficulty that the author faced in order to travel to different parts of Assam. During which time? During the rainy season. One was what? The bridges on the rivers got washed away, the bamboo bridges. And second was that the dirt tracks got converted into muddy roads. Sekto gute buka hoi jay, titia to bhal rasta nasile. Etia he gaon bilakor bhitor rasta bilak bhal hol, poka rasta hol, borokhon dileo buka nohoy, dhuniya ke manho haja koribo pare. Kintu tumalki independence or agor Assam khonor kotha chinta kora. Okay, if you ask your grandfather, grandmother, if they are alive, agor senior manhok jodi hudha, titia tumalke gom paba what kind of life it was at that time. Because life was totally different at that time, you may say. Okay, students, so let us come to the end of this particular session today. But before I end up, let me just do a recap of what we had learned today. I want that you do your lessons with sincerity. After completing the class, I want that you yourself read it again. Any difficulty that you find, you please don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, so in today's class, students, we got to know about what? We got to know about the North Bank, especially about the North Bank, the European and his wife, their adventure, which turned to be a misadventure, you may say. Then we got to know about the North Bank during the time of winter, during the time of the rainy season. During the time of rainy season, it was best avoided. Then the author mostly highlights in this part, he mostly highlights about the difficulty of travel during the rainy season. He talks about the marboats and his unique experience of crossing a flooded river on horseback. Okay, a marboater question kintu khub ahe. Long questions also you get, and you also get questions on the flood during the rainy season. Okay, students, so I bid goodbye for today, but I want that you revise the chapter till the part we have done. Thank you, students.